I wanted to come up with some sort of big YouTuber dramatic whatever, but that's really not me, and it's not the kind of example I want to set either. My house caught on fire, and hoc est quod est, or this is what it is. So, I'll show you around the house, and you can get an idea of how extensive the fire damage was, along with how much of a mess was made by the fire department. I'll talk about what the process is to get it repaired, try to describe all the moving parts, what's happened so far, and what's going to be happening very shortly. That's where my TV used to be. Now it's over there. If I can get approval to use some of the video I shot with some of the people involved, you'll hear me taking what some might consider a fairly light-hearted approach to how I talk with them, and how I'm at least trying to deal with all of this in general. There's a stove under there somewhere. A lot of people want to express their condolences from my loss when they first start talking to me, and my default response has simply been, this is life. Hadn't noticed that hole until just now. Definitely noticed that hole. When that doesn't work and their sympathies just keep coming, I simply say that it's a new adventure, and boy, it's a big one. These guys got some of the worst of it. Kitchen after a fire. He figures probably all of this stuff is just trashed. So beyond here, we don't have any really obvious effects of the fire, but it all stinks. It all smells pretty bad. It's like little bits of insulation dragged in everywhere. My messy bed. That was all me. All of it in here was me. The second fire guy spent a bunch of time up in here looking at this wiring. These wires right here are totally stripped bare. We got some good melty goop in right here. Knocking holes to see where the wire went. Checking in there. And then we get to go to the basement. Look how nice and open it is now. It's so open with the furnace moved. As far as actual fire damage goes for the basement, you know, some water made it down. A little bit of insulation made it down. Water got down over here. But the studs are fine. apparently all of the electrical that I put in has to come out because it's in the way of de-stinkifying all of the studs that are in here. So that might mean insulation, I don't know. Probably not for the basement because it wasn't finished. These poor stairs, they're done. And back in here on the back side, soffits got all busted up. And you can see the stickers on the roof where they put in just to keep a little bit of rain out. Peeled off some of the shingles there so they could get a better stick. I'm going to take a few minutes and do what I can to pull out some of the more sentimental things that absolutely can't be replaced. Oh, it's very cold. Very cold. Always look on the bright side of life. Do 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 do. Okay, I'm going to work on getting dog 1, dog 2, and the Fountain of Moose out, and I'm going to try to get the coffee table out too. See what we can do for finding some paper towel to wipe that down a little bit. Still stuff in here. It says this is all going to go, but I can use it to get some of the crud off. As far as I can tell, and as far as both the fire inspectors for the city can tell and the private fire inspector hired by the insurance company can tell, 100% just old wiring. The private fire inspector from the insurance company thinks that there might have been some increase of load somewhere that might have caused things. Thanks, Woodpecker. But I was looking over the VODs and man, there were some power issues for one of the downstairs streaming PCs. It shut off 3 times during that last stream on Friday. I don't think it was any particular specific load that I did that caused it. I think there were some existing electrical issues that started to rear their heads while I was streaming, and the PC shutting down could have just been a symptom of that. So far, the fire inspectors, none of the 3 of them can say, like, this is definitely the thing right here. There was a spot where a ground wire got energized, and that was a retrofitted sometime after the original wiring ground wire. It's kind of interesting. You can see where this one loose copper cable is kind of strung out over a bunch of the outlets in the fixtures in the back wall, just up by this door here. And you can see where there are score marks that show where that was clearly overheated. Like there's burn on the sheathing
That's the actual outside of the house, just burned on the inside right along where that wire ran. So that thing definitely got energized at some point, but we don't know if that getting energized was what caused things or whether that was a symptom of the original issue. And there was also a spot where some of the copper just is completely gone, like an inch and a half worth of, there is an electrical cable here, and then it stops, and then there's more electrical cable there, and it's just, that copper is gone. That's a hefty amount of current going through there to completely fry that. One of the inspectors thinks that this started along an entire line, all along the line, like 6 different fires started along this one circuit, but we can't come up with any way that would have been caused by anything. We can't come up with anything that says, you know, Moose did this and that caused all this stuff. So, and on top of that, the amount of damage that is in the rafters and the 2 rafters that were pulled out, the amount of burn damage that was there, and the amount of mass loss from that wood seems to indicate that it was going for a little while. And you combine that with the electrical problems that I was having with that one PC downstairs, that would seem to back up that it was going for a little while. CTV seems to think that it started at 5 o'clock, but I was streaming until 6:15. So if they're right, then I was streaming from inside a burning building for over an hour, which is, you know, that's kind of a fun idea. I've been trying to get a hold of CTV to see where they got that number from. No luck so far, but we'll see what we can get with that. So apparently the process is, especially if you have insurance, and double especially if you have good insurance. A lot of people have commented that I'm lucky to have the insurance that I have because some of the other insurance companies are just not worth the time. But the process seems to be that they get the stink and gross and dirty and asbestos abatement company to come in and clear out everything that's a problem. And as far as what's a problem goes, that's anything stinky from the fire, anything that now has asbestos that has to be remediated following asbestos protocols, anything that has water damage from the firefighters, and anything obviously with fire damage. So you wrap all that up, and it seems to be that they're expecting to do an entire gut of everything inside. So all the drywall, all the insulation, all of the electrical, even the electrical that I put in downstairs, because they have to smoke seal it everywhere. Anywhere that's wood has to be smoke sealed. So all of the electrical that I've done in the basement, what little there is, that all has to come out. Drywall, vapor barrier, insulation, flooring, perhaps subfloor, anything that's fire damaged has to get out and be replaced. As far as what do they have to remove for stink and fire and all this stuff goes, all of the drywall has to come out because you can't unstink that. All of the insulation has to come out, all the vapor barrier, all of the electrical, even the electrical that I put downstairs, because if they're smoke sealing the framing that I put down there, which they have to do to get the stink out, they have to remove the electrical cable because people don't seem to really definitely know what the smoke sealant does to the electrical cable. So they remove it just in case, and then it comes back in with new stuff later. So all of the electrical's gone, all of the floor is gone, all of the obviously fire damage stuff is gone. Once all of the gross is out, then they can come in with the smoke seal, which as far as I've heard is just like an oil-based spray primer paint kind of application that they just coat everything with. They do that once everything is out and once everything is structurally sound. So obviously there were 2 rafters that came out, and there's a bunch of damage on the other rafters, so they're going to be talking to their engineers that have already come out to say, you know, what are the options? One of the options is going to be stick frame, replace the rafters, and one of the options is going to be tear out all the roof, and including the rafters that are not necessarily so damaged, and replace it all with trusses. They have to take off all of the roof anyway because it's all smoke damaged, and so the roof comes off, shingles come off, get new roof, get new shingles, get new soffit. All of that gets done as part of the remediation process. Once the remediation process is done, then we get to start talking about the repair. So the emergency remediation, I kind of don't have a lot of choice or say in. I'm hoping that if the engineer says, well, it'll be like a couple of $1,000s difference between stick framing and all new trusses, I can say, hey, you know what? Let's get those trusses. I'll pony up for that. Because having trusses in there would save me a lot of headaches later on. I don't have a lot of say in what goes on with the emergency remediation. They could just kind of come in and they do their thing. Once that's done, then we start talking about the repair process. And that's going to be get their contractors who are doing the remediation to quote, get a secondary contractor that the insurance company has worked with before to quote, and if I want, I can have a contractor that I like or know quote, and they quote for cost and they quote for time. Then the insurance says, okay, we pick of those three options, we'll pick this one that will say this is our choice. And once that choice is made, then they know how much money for the repair and how much time that they need to cover for me in terms of providing me a place to live while the repair is happening. So if it's 6 months and $100,000, they say it's 6 months and $100,000. And from there, I can either decide to let the magpies are going nuts. And then I have the choice to say, okay, go do it, and then I put her around for 6 months. Or I can say, pay me out for the $100,000. I'll live in the place that you provide me for however long it takes me to get this livable. So, shower and poop, like I've been saying the whole time. And also a microwave and maybe somewhere to put in a new stove. And then I come in and I do all the work. So I would be living in whatever rental they are going to be hooking me up with soon. Right now they've got me up in a hotel, which is all right. It has a kitchenette, so that's something, but no oven, just like a stovetop. So one of the options is I could still come in after all the remediation is done and do the rebuild work with the money that they would have paid to a contractor to do the rebuild work. It's not such a bad thing right there. Another option is I say, okay, pay me out for the contractor value, pay me out for the rental value, and I just dump the property and say, okay, well, then on my first flip, whatever, I walk away with that much money. So I'm talking to my realtor about what does he think he can get out of this property as it is, because the furnace is moved. It does have the service upgrade for the electricity. It does have the brand new garage, and it does have the lovely new concrete, as crooked as the lines are. These are some definite, and it would be 100% gutted, ready to go. That sort of cost is not small to most contractors, right? So decisions to be made when the time comes, but for right now, it's try to get as much footage as I can of the process as it comes, and be as big a pain in the butt as I can be without actually making them mad at me, so that I can keep being a big pain in the butt. You got to tread that line of you're too much of a pain and now they don't want to deal with you, right? So I got to do as much of that as I can to, if they're going to start a new process on whatever day, if I can hang out on the front and say, all right, well, let's see what's going on here and not get in their way, then we can do that. And if not, maybe, I don't know, it'll be slow for a little while, that's for sure. So that's kind of where things are at right now. I do have internet out to the garage, and I do have power out to the garage, and I've confirmed that those both work. I need to get the Bluetooth extension and the HDMI extension, and I want to try to get the wireless access point out into the garage and working there, so that, worst case scenario, maybe I can work on the landscaping a little bit until they start working on the roof stuff up here and want me not working on the landscaping because they want to be able to just toss stuff to be able to work quickly, and that's fair. I understand that. Except I gotta wait for the ground to thaw before I can really get going at the landscaping. Maybe sometime next week we can get going with some landscaping streams. That would be, you know, cleaning up the trash and placing these little retaining wall pavers in whatever places I can come up with, and a bunch more digging just to fill in all the forming gaps between the concrete and the lawn, and then get this nice and flat and drop like 6 bags of, maybe 10 bags of new grass sod on it. Could also build the window wells for the egress windows and just make this backyard look kind of presentable. Maybe do the paraging on the garage that I hate thinking about, because that doesn't seem like it'll be any fun, but it's something I can do. So lots of options of things that I can do depending on where they're at and what they're doing. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I biked down to get some exercise because I don't have a whole lot else to do. So now I get to bike back.